Um, I'm doing good. Yeah. I thought I was homebound for since yesterday. Spent my day watching UFC, watching Cricket World Cup, not World Cup, Champions
You
Trophy.
know?
Yeah. So I was feeling a little, frisky. So I thought, let's do some brain exercise through this podcast. How was your evening yesterday?
Good.
Good.
Did
Okay.
a bunch of mics.
Okay. How many total?
Um, 4, 5.
Oh, great. Great.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
might do like 7 today.
Oh, wow. That's a lot of exercise. Good for you.
Yeah, because I'm gonna try to work through stuff in sequence so I can try to do like, if I do 7 5-minute mics,
Yes. That's like a half an
40.
hour.
Yeah.
40 minutes, yeah. It's good. Good exercise.
Yeah, because if I can get 40 minutes together, 45 minutes of stuff,
Mhm.
that's an hour special because,
Yep. Yep.
you know, and that's and then I can yeah. And then it's like if I start going like because if I can have like 45 minutes of stuff on record
Hmm.
and then start working past that stuff,
Yes.
where I just kind of retire it basically.
Right.
um that's a kind of big move to be a working comic because it's like you can sell your
Right.
stuff to people, but then when they come to see you they're seeing all new things, so they're not.
Right. Right. So that's what I also did around the election. I completed 1 hour of Hawk Tuah special, and it was all different material.
Well, how
Uh,
many people watched it or listened to it?
so what I did was I recorded all these 5 minutes, 10 minutes at different places and put them together.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
understand, but
Yeah.
that's not what I'm trying to do.
Yeah.
I'm trying to
So
put out
now,
I'm trying to
now,
put out a special that's good enough that Netflix would buy it. Like it has to be of a certain quality, of a
Mhm.
certain tier. That
Right.
that's
But
something that people do,
yeah, that's
but it's not.
in one
It's
setting.
it's it's just like thinking about like recording a record or recording music.
Hmm.
You know,
Yeah.
like you could take a bunch of your own live recordings and stuff, but it's not. You know, like gonna like count in that group of records
Hmm.
that like other um um like there's a mutual understanding between all the different companies that sell these records that
Right.
they are of a certain type and quality.
Hmm.
um and it's very similar to like joke submittals too, because like basically, like I've been to workshops
Hmm.
where they explain exactly how you're supposed to send a press release to the LA Times or
Hmm.
to try to request that your like music or comedy goes on
Right.
like like Pandora,
Hmm.
Sirius XM or whatever.
Hmm.
And so yeah, it's like if you follow these certain guidelines that they have, and that's like half the stuff that agents and managers do.
Yeah.
So
I
if
mean,
you just have access to that information, you can be your own
I,
agent and
I,
manager
ha-
or
I,
like
yeah,
publicist if you
I
want.
have, yeah, I have released my, like I said, documentary before and the book as well. Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, but the thing is that, when it comes to special, like for example, this Hawk Tuah thing that I did, nowadays there are a lot of programs which also has these internet clips, in it.
Hmm.
So I created that kind of consistency in that. But
I think it's even to the degree that when you're like trying to do comedy
mhm,
as a serious endeavor,
right.
you know, that when your focus isn't split
Hmm.
between comedy and several other things,
Hmm.
you know what I mean? A
Hmm.
lot of those like tastemakers and big wigs in the industry, they
Hmm.
care so much about the form of comedy
Hmm.
as a whole
Hmm.
as opposed to any individual success.
Hmm.
And so part of like the vetting process
Hmm.
of trying to be a
Hmm.
great comedian
Hmm.
is to be and show dedication to comedy as a form,
Hmm.
you know. I even think about like Steve Martin.
Yeah, there are a lot of comedians who are. I mean, it's I didn't know before I came to know, or when I started doing it, that lots of comedians are musicians as well, and lots of musicians are doing comedy because essentially they don't have the stage fright thing, that so many have to overcome. Also, there are many overlapping things in terms of amusing or entertaining people. Also, with regards to these gatekeepers and, like you said, the kingmakers or taste makers, that kind of thing. Like, for example, Ian Bagg.
Uh,
No, okay, he's a very good comedian and really great. I think probably the best, maybe at par with Andrew Schulz. At crowd work. I mean, his sometimes his specials are, there is no content. He's just doing the crowd work.
Crowd work's another one,
Yeah.
right? Where there's people that do crowd work and there's people that have done crowd work forever,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
And the thing about crowd work,
Mhm.
right, is that if you're a great comedian,
Mhm.
right, crowd work is really, really easy,
Yes.
right? And if you are an up and coming comedian,
Mhm.
right, if you want to get better
Mhm.
as a comedian,
Yeah.
then crowd work is not the best way to get better,
Okay.
right?
Hmm.
So crowd work is easy enough because it's just like a conversation,
Yeah.
and comedians are almost universally good conversationalists,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
It's just a conversation between two people that the crowd is like watching,
Yeah.
right? And like when you're doing, your comedy right, then you're talking to the whole crowd at once. You're like having a conversation with every single person there,
Right.
and they're not like allowed to respond, you know, right? But
I
it's to
mean,
the
technically,
degree,
yes,
right,
theoretically.
where one of the things that a great comedian would use crowd work for, right, is that they would tell a few jokes, right? And like everybody in the room would be laughing except for like five people,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
Maybe those five people, they're not like talking to each other. They're just hanging out, sipping their drinks, not really paying attention,
Hmm.
right? And then the comedian would use that crowd work to engage those five people,
Right.
like ask them all their names and what they do and blah, 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 and
Mhm.
then go back to doing his jokes. And now it's the entire room is all connected and all laughing,
Right.
right? Does that make sense?
Yes, it totally does make sense. But what I'm saying is that this crowd work thing has really evolved into a craft in its own since probably like last 5 years, I would say.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah, no, of course. And it's great for comedy
yeah.
and it's great for comedians,
Yes. And
but
last,
it's
I would
not,
say
it's
2 years,
just,
3 years. Yeah.
it's like this thing where like, I mean, think about like Adam Sandler,
Hmm.
right? He
Yeah.
doesn't need crowd work,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Or Dave Chappelle, right? Like Dave Chappelle's not doing crowd work,
Yeah.
because crowd work is almost like below him,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
And so it's just, there's nothing wrong with crowd work, right? It's just a lower kind of form of the comedy form,
Hmm.
right? And it's like, for me, right? When I'm sitting there and I'm looking at an audience,
Hmm.
right? Especially like as a non-binary person, or like I'm talking about racial issues or
Right.
something,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
Then I'm trying to like figure out what jokes will connect to like everybody in the audience,
Hmm.
right? And
Hmm.
it just seems like so insanely easy for me to pick out one person in the crowd and figure out stuff that's going to make them laugh,
Hmm.
right?
Right.
So it's like if there's, it's just, it's like making the hoop bigger in basketball,
Right.
so you're practicing
Yep.
playing basketball,
Hmm.
by yourself or like at an open mic,
Yeah.
and you're throwing the ball into a giant hoop and
Hmm.
you're like, look, I scored so many more points. It's like, well, sure, but are you getting better as a comedian by playing with that big hoop? You know,
I
like if you
agree with
can,
you, but in terms of, like you said, in terms of, for example, where I left was that I reached out to Ian Bagg and I told him that, I would write a book on him. And he gave me the contact of his agent in LA, the creative agency, whatever it is called. So what I'm saying is that in terms of these middlemen and agents, their role in comedy, I think, is getting marginalized in the sense that it is becoming too interactive. And I think that the crowd work is basically something that is going to really, really empower the comedians in the sense that
yeah,
because in the traditional sense, like you said, maybe it's below. I don't think it's below. I think it's a different animal actually. And also, for example, I just saw this morning, I saw two ads of Sarah Silverman and Aziz Ansari. Now, I was in South Africa in 2010 and I went to a couple of comedy shows over there and I really loved it because he used me as a crowd work, and a couple of other people. For me, it was new. I never saw crowd work before. I've been to Russell Peters before in Dubai around 2007, 8, and I really enjoyed it. Amazing show, back to back, non-stop laughters. But this was something new. So now what's happening is that, for example, for me, I can hear anything from Sarah Silverman on my Apple Music or YouTube. Same about Aziz. I have seen, in the entire what do you, his catalog or all the stuff I've heard and seen. But in order for me to go out or to call me out, it will be a defining factor. For example, I would really love to be in the front row of Andrew Schultz's show because I will know that he's going to
but
target.
I'm like honestly,
Yeah.
crowd work is if you want to go into crowd work, that's great. I mean,
Yeah.
if you want to make crowd work a bigger part of your act,
Hmm.
that's fine.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with that,
Yeah.
right? But it's just like saying it's like a short film versus a film,
Right.
right? It's like a like I know,
Hmm.
right, for myself,
Hmm.
like when I go up there, when I write material and I go up there trying to perform like new material or work on stuff
Hmm.
like that's going to be material on stage,
Hmm.
right? Every time I do that,
Hmm.
I get better at
Of
doing
course.
crowd work,
Of course.
right? Like I'm great at crowd work,
Of
right?
course.
My crowd work is killer, but
Hmm.
I never do it because I'm just practicing most of the time,
Right.
right?
Yep.
And so as I practice
Hello,
do
Amadeus. How are you doing?
hello,
Hey,
we're talking about crowd work.
all right. So all right. I'm with you. Practice your crowd work. Okay, that's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I was just saying if you write material and practice your material more, then you'll get better at doing crowd work
I totally agree with you.
more than if you do crowd work.
Yes, that's true. But for example, I definitely agree with you in the sense that it's gonna, as like Amadeus was telling me yesterday, with regards to timing, that it's with the passage of time, I'm just sharpening my timing and I'm coming up with new material. But like for example, at Island Rib, I really enjoyed. Those were 10 minutes, and I really enjoyed it because the crowd was participating, and also my timing also was good over there. And I am a big fan of improv as well, and I also wanted to be more interactive. And the reason behind it is that, for crowd work, like you said, that if your timing is getting better, of course you can get into, slide in. For example, I recently went to Mark Norman's show as well at William Buck's Comedy. And I was again sitting in the front that maybe he's going to target me. It was his birthday, and I, bought some Indian sweets for him, just like I gave to Doug Stanhope. So, but he did not target me. I think somebody else, the opening comedians targeted me, and I really loved it. And then what I'm trying to say is that Mark is also taking questions these days during his shows, and that's also a kind of crowd work. And but I think for crowd work, you have to be seriously witty, seriously evil. You know, I say it because Amadeus is also a Scorpio, and Ian Bag is also a Scorpio, and Andrew Schulz is also a Scorpio. So you need to have that kind of, evil eye to target and spin every what do you say, stereotype or observation, because it's kind of observational comedy as well, crowd work. And not only your based on your own predispositions, but also the way you gauge and profile people around you, which is the best and the most fun part. And that is the reason comedians like Andrew Schultz, who are outwardly, uh, outrightly conservative and borderline racist as well in some cases. The reason they are accepted in places like Dubai or Saudi, because when I saw Russell Peters in Dubai, he was very nervous because the local laws were totally different, and they transcript everything, and you can't say dick pussies and all those things, and you
Mm.
can't target the royal family. You cannot target the culture. But then, after a couple of visits to Dubai, his material was so amazing that they loosen up their laws as well.
Uh-huh.
So, what I'm trying to say is that you have to be a really shrewd observer
Mm.
and witty, naturally witty, which I'm not. Naturally, I'm not witty. And also evil, in the sense that you are not scared of jumping the boundaries. And then for me, crowd work is improv, because improv is about, like you said, uh, it's beyond one person, it's
Well,
beyond.
if you're doing improv,
Yeah,
right, then you know you're still trying to engage with the whole
somebody else.
audience,
Yes.
and a lot of times there's multiple people on stage,
Yes.
and like they bring up audience members too,
Yes, take
you
questions from
know,
them as well. Yeah, yeah,
but like single person improv shows,
yeah.
I don't. I mean, they're not the most popular type of improv show, and
Yes.
that's for a reason, too.
Yes. Yes.
And like what I'm also saying though too is that like crowd work has always been a part of comedy.
Okay.
It's always been a thing that comedians do and use, just like act outs.
Right.
Like
Right.
people talk with their hands and the
Right.
expressiveness of
Right.
the comedy. So it's just like different forms of it and different like styles of
Right.
comedy popular at different like times,
Uh-huh.
and you know yeah.
I mean, for
There's
example,
there's
Snipes.
a
Yeah,
lot of
sorry.
good
Go
rooms
ahead.
for that.
Sorry. Yeah, go ahead, Medis.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of good rooms. Like so I would the comedy Monday nights at the St. Laz in Philly. So it's ran by the guy who runs the comedy school, and it's probably one of the best places to. The room is so small; it looks like it holds 10 people. You know what I'm saying? But the top comedians in the city go there. You know
Oh,
what I'm
okay.
saying? So like you can let it just fly with the crowd, like literally just let it go on the crowd. Just stay away from the comedians. They get real. I learned that the hard way. They're not gonna cancel you for nothing. They don't really they're not easily offended. It's one of the most raunchiest rooms and it's really small. But I noticed like when you do like on the block, funny like you said, like really ranking on each other or whatever, it's different. Like there's a whole mechanics to this entertainment thing that's kind of different. One of the
Yes.
biggest things is reading the room.
Yep.
You know, like I've gone on stage and I got, I got canceled once. You know, I almost got to a fight a couple of times.
Oh my
So you gotta
God.
be able to read the room. Yeah, it's
Wow.
kind of it gets dangerous. You
Yeah.
know, this place I went to, they wouldn't even let me get on stage. And then like looks at me. But I love doing crowd work because that's where you get to be witty, like really on the block funny. Just to pick somebody. I like to go on kind of early too because there's always somebody there just starting shit in the crowd, and I just be having like ammo for them. You know what I mean? So that's the easy part. The hardest part is when you're dealing with like a quiet crowd or like when it's all comedians. It's kind of hard unless you're friends, you know. So that's why I like to travel. That's the easiest. That's the easiest way. I mean, well, the fastest way, the hardest way, but the fastest way to cut your teeth with comedy.
Yeah.
And that's why I started to get better. But you know, it depends on. I'm a moody guy.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm not in a good mood, I'm not gonna be funny. So
Oh,
that's
yeah.
why I started.
That's
I
also
started
one.
writing.
That's also a very important thing to control because and I just like you also have a music background. I detached myself a long time back in the sense that I don't let my mood pilot me. But having said that, and like to the point of what Evan was saying, uh, it is uh, it is bilateral in the sense that when you are intentionally targeting people for crowd work to cover time, that's one thing. The other thing is when the crowd is interactive as well, is also participating. Like in the traditional sense, if you see Richard Pryor or if you see other comedians who used to not George Carlin, there were a couple of comedians who used to Bill Hicks, they used to involve the crowd as well. It was not crowd work per se, but sometimes they used to pick and have a little bit of fun here and there.
Have you guys ever seen Bill Burr address Philadelphia?
Yeah,
I think I
hilarious.
have.
That's like that blew him up. That really that brought him to the next level.
Yeah.
Everybody wanted to hear him
But
talk
it's
like
like it's just the same way that it's almost like he doesn't want to do it to them. Because it's
that.
like when you're a trained comedian, you can blow people up like verbally,
Right,
like in a way that's like beyond other normal people's understanding,
right.
Yeah,
you
And
know?
can
And
tolerate it.
you
Yeah,
don't get there by just going to open mics and doing crowd work.
right.
Like you're never
right.
going to get that good if you just do that. You have to
Right.
like write and do material.
Right.
And
Yeah,
one of the biggest things about it is that when no matter what your mood is, your
yeah,
performance gets so ingrained in you and your
Hmm.
like hand motions and your facial expressions and your like actual
Muscle
like
memory.
emotional state when you're telling the stories and stuff.
Yeah.
Because I talk about a lot of really crazy shit that happened to me in
Hmm.
my comedy, and it
Hmm.
did literally happen to me. And
Hmm.
the first time I was telling it, I was all an emotional wreck doing it,
Yes, of course.
and it over
It's
practicing
natural.
doing it over and over, then I can stay stable and in my performance and keep it funny
yeah.
Yes.
every time.
That I
That's a big challenge for me is because I like to tell real stories, but how do I make it funny?
yes.
And that's where my mood came in. But like even like Atif said about the music background. Like you be in the band, we rehearse, you're like always playing. Like the songs are just you just know them.
Yep.
But if you go, nobody knows your song. You're torn. Nobody knows who you are. If I forget lines or bars, I'm gonna freestyle them.
Yep.
Nobody knows the fucking song. You know what
Right.
I'm saying? And I think that's important about writing with comedy. So
Right.
that's
Right.
why I took time off. And yeah, writing jokes is way, way, way more important
Hmm.
because I might even not even be telling the funny, or you might
Yes.
even see somebody in the crowd not keeping up with you, like you're kind of losing the crowd when you're telling your jokes. Boom,
Right.
you hit that guy right there. It's kind of like you go there with a target.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like when you're on stage, you already see a target, but you just go into your act, and if you start to mess up, you just hit that guy. Like, fuck you
Yeah.
look at that type.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
That's the on the block for you. That's the chilling out. Like I'm outside right now.
that's
But,
that's the challenge because the thing is that when you're self-deprecating and you're also making fun of your situations.
yeah.
Like for example, the taping to the chair bit that you do, Evan, and uh, because the
Hold on,
problem is
wait,
that
taping to the chair.
yeah,
What?
Yeah, dude, I do it all the time.
yeah. So
But like I do that, and about getting woken up with a loaded gun
ah,
pressed against my head.
right, right. That's
That
true.
that's That
Oh,
one really happened. And
yeah.
when I first, that's the one I was referencing. I was just like, gosh, because every time I tell this story, I feel the fucking gun against my head.
That's
I'm
the
like, oh my
thing. That's
God,
the
fuck
problem.
you.
The
Oh
problem is that
shit.
we are hardware beings. Neuroscience says that every time we go to the past and think about something bad that happened to us, we feel the same. Our body feels the same. And there comes the challenge of a comedian to make it funny and to deliver it in a way with the timing, with a tonality so cute and sexy and hot and amusing. No, yeah, that people laugh on it.
Yeah.
That's that because people laugh on your darkness, and comedy is all about converting all these stresses of life into something funny, and learning from it, and just not take them seriously.
Hmm. Hmm.
So for me, I intentionally make sure that when I'm converting that into a bit, I want to make sure that I deliver it in a way where I detach myself from the sad or the dark part, and then keep the material in front of me, and then let it go with timing, because otherwise your depression and your stress sometimes get transferred to the public as well.
Thank you.
Cool.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Nah, so it's really good. I got to catch you guys. Are you working the circuit today? Or y'all going out tomorrow?
Yeah, I'm going to Eastville at 4. I'll be there until
Cincinnati, man. What time is
7,
that?
and then I'm going to Tiny Cupboard.
Tiny Cupboard?
Yeah, I hosted there at 8:30. So
Was that's in Queens, right? Story?
no, it's
That's
in
Bushwick,
Bedside.
Brooklyn.
Oh, I'm thinking about different. Yeah. Okay. Wait, Tiny Cupboard. I don't know
Tiny
what that
cupboard
is.
is the training ground.
I did something out. Story. I thought that was a place.
Tiny cupboard is becoming a rehearsal
Hmm?
space.
No, there's only a couple places in Queens that do open mics like consistently. There's a few bars too, but like Brooklyn has like 10 times
Yeah.
more.
The Sunday is a little slow, usually.
No, I
No?
wouldn't say so.
Okay.
I
Monday
think the
is
slowest
usually very heavy.
because there's not a lot of mics actually that run on Saturday and Sunday. And
Yes,
I
that's
feel
what I'm
like
saying. Yeah.
Saturday and Sunday are slow, like
Yep.
for especially for Manhattan, because there's just so many shows booked.
Right. That's what I'm saying. Yeah. Even in other states as well, it's the same. Even for music open mics as well. Saturday and Sunday are slow. Monday
Yeah,
for
so
for some reason is very heavy because the bars are slow. That's why.
Oh,
yeah, the
yeah.
bars
Nah,
are
this
slow.
I think like roasting other comics too. Backstage is where all the funny come out.
Mhm.
Bill Burr came up with like Kevin Hart, Patrice O'Neal, like all those guys, like a different kind of funny,
Yes.
you know. So that's what I like that part of it. So yeah, I'm trying to get up with you guys, man. I gotta get out there.
They also knew like 5,000 people at the time, like the same way that we, as a comedian, too. If you're going out to open mics and you're putting in the work, then you're going to meet like thousands of people. And
Mhm.
so when you blow up or whatever, you're like, oh, I came up with like these 5 people.
Right.
But like you should have known like everybody in the scene basically by the
Right.
time I already know, like half the comics in Brooklyn.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
That's great. I mean, like you were mentioning about, there was something that I was saying and got left in the middle. That Snipes, for example, he's totally crowd work. He doesn't have pre-set material when he comes on stage, which is scary for me, but also very challenging in the sense that. But he has so many stories in his life to tell. As a rock star, the life that he has lived is
Yeah. I've
intriguing.
been doing that for a while too, myself. Like I have material, and then when I get up on stage, like especially when it comes to longer jokes or tag jokes, like
Uh-huh.
I can cut up jokes into smaller chunks. So it's like when I lose the audience on a joke, I can just immediately pivot to another topic.
Another one, yeah.
Especially like the tape to my chair thing. The part of the
Mhm.
reason why I tell that story so much is
Mhm.
because I'll abandon a joke on a dime and
Okay.
then just be like, in first grade, I got taped to my chair. you know, like just boom, and then I'm in this new bit, and
Yeah,
it like really
that's what I do as
commands
well.
the
But
audience attention,
yeah,
you know. But
yeah,
I do this crowd work bit too, where I'm like, if you ever lose an audience, then my advice to up and coming comedians is that you just ask them questions that they can't refuse to answer. Like, did anybody here go to high school?
Oh, okay, I see that. That's a good one. It's kind of like a code,
that's true.
And the
open.
whole crowd's like, yes, I did go to high school. I'm like, wow, I'm so proud of you, you know. And then I go into it with a bunch of different questions or whatever,
Yeah,
or you know, that's like it's like I'm making fun of crowd work. Actually,
right.
the joke
Or
is
the
that
thing,
saying it's just so easy to get the audience's attention if you just
yeah,
ask them a
yeah.
question.
Or the thing that I did the other day, the slur dictionary. A for asshole, B for bastard, D for dick, C for cunt.
Oh,
You know? So, because for me, the greatest fear is to forget my material, that, whatever time duration is given to me, for me, it's a big, scare, or you can say phobia, that, that I don't forget my material. Because for me, that is essentially bombing. Otherwise, anything else does not count bombing for me. So,
Well,
what you,
I think you just got to learn to embrace the bomb, because everybody bombs,
yeah,
and you learn more from bombing and you learn from being successful. And so when you bomb, like you should like kind of really like grow to love that moment in
absolutely.
this way where you're really analyzing it and paying attention to it, and like
Exactly.
you're like, where did I go so wrong? Why did I go so wrong? What do
Yep,
I need to do
yep,
differently in
yep,
the
yep.
future to not make that happen? You know?
That's
yeah.
true. That's true.
Your nails are disturbing me, but we have
What?
there, right. The first 20 seconds going up was probably the hardest for me, but I actually went up two bomb. I went up to for what he said about the neurological stuff. Like I had real bad brain damage and nerve damage, social anxiety. So just
Yeah.
getting up there just kind of like helped me ease back into my body.
Mhm.
And I was like, oh, I really like coming out here though.
Yep.
I really like it. Yeah. So I just started like writing jokes. And I noticed neither one of you go up with a notebook.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like
I don't.
most guys when I go to open mics, everybody got their notebook out.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I've never read in an open mic. Never.
Yeah.
So from the
Well, that
beginning,
I think that the notebook is actually kind of a good kind of point for us too, in
yes,
this way where
majority of people do that. Yeah.
we're talking about doing crowd work,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
And I feel like on the other side of that is people who like write jokes for the sake of writing jokes,
Hmm.
Yeah.
you know, and talk about practicing writing jokes as opposed to performing the material in front of a
Yeah.
live audience,
Yep.
you know,
Yep.
where I think that people overwrite and overwork
Yes.
in this way where they're always performing new jokes, where I
Right.
think that refining your jokes by
Yeah.
doing them on stage is
Yeah.
actually where it's at as
Yep.
far as getting better,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
And like people end up not progressing as much as they could
Right.
because
Yeah.
they're always just performing brand new material that they wrote,
Right.
Yeah.
you know?
I met a guy in Philly on his way up. His name Dante. He's in Wilmington, Delaware now. But I saw him his very first time on stage, and it was a dare by friends to go up on stage. He's a young black guy, a little bit younger than me, but he went up there and told a story about getting stabbed, right? And I swear, like 2 years later, he has his own, he's shooting his own special in Delaware. And it was like watching that one story that he refined got him to the point where he found his style of comedy. You know what I'm saying? He
Yeah.
found his
Yeah,
way to
no,
write.
yeah, for sure. That's
Yeah,
that 2 year thing
yeah,
is like a real thing too.
yeah.
Because him like shooting his own special, because that's another thing. You have to put in like 2 years of like dedicated time
Yeah.
to comedy, you know.
The local work really helped him too. Like I swear, it was real good, and it kind of inspired me. Being all over the place as I am. But yeah, that one story because I got a few of them. We all live interact. That's another thing. Comics live traumatic lives, man. Miserable fucks. You know what I'm saying? So music helps me in one way, but I'm so good at music, like I can't even like that persona has no more. to squeeze out of it, but perfect, like just being excellent at it.
Yeah.
That's where a lot of people get to that point in a lot of things they do. So comedy is just later on in life, I just like, yeah, this is really, really fun. The craft of it is extremely difficult, and actually the performance, it's a different. It's probably the most difficult part. There's no more difficult form of entertainment than
Yes.
comedy.
It's scary, and that's the fun
Yeah.
part. That's the thrill for me.
Yeah.
That's the
I
excitement.
used to be scared of the darkness that you stare into until I went to an open mic